start with Juan again. Like a copy. And you know what it is? What are your votes?
Well, to touch on a little bit on every topic, I want to begin with that education. I want to make sure, I believe that education is the solution to almost every socioeconomic problem, so I do believe we need to invest in your children as much as possible. So one such way is I do think a lot of our classrooms, they're overcrowded, so you need to reduce those class sizes in order to give like more one-on-one attention. I'm not a teacher, but I have been involved with these working president as a president, so I do care about the youth. With respect to the job and the economic development that needs to come to this neighborhood, as you stated, I do know what it takes to revitalize neighborhoods to bring new development, and I know how to retain the current ones that are here. With respect to safety, as I stated before, I think we need to improve our response times from our officers, and because of the obstacles that we have with the train tracks and the bridges, so I do want to advocate more about hiring the police officers. And we've told certain things that like abandoned buildings where gang activities possibly happen. Our kids still walk past these areas, so we need to address that. And I want to talk about also the participatory budget that I failed to mention earlier that I agree with the candidates that I want to engage the community to be able to choose the projects that are going to come here. No one knows better what projects the community needs and the residents themselves. One person cannot, especially in 10th Ward, as big as it is, if you don't know what all the residents want, so you need to ask them for their advice. As I stated before, I'm going to continue to do what I've been doing. This doesn't change. This doesn't change anything. I'm going to continue to do my profession, but if I can, I would like to change my profession. I would be in public service full time.
Thank you very much.
Sure. We have many challenges in the 7th Ward and the 10th Ward, and that's why last Wednesday night we held a meeting in Bush so that we can talk about those issues, about the 7th Ward and the 10th Ward. You can't tell where one starts and one ends. The wards are going through the same kind of things. I know that we're not going to be able to meet all of our goals in a short time or easily, but as a community advocate, I have not merely just dealt with the symptoms of the problems and try to cope with the current situation. I've been fighting to end a toxic environment, not just at the Petcoke sites at KCBX, but the toxic environment in City Hall and the toxic environment at the current Alderman's office. And it's not enough to hold charity events and coat drives if we're not dealing with the issues of poverty. It's not enough to bring asthma trucks to the schools if we don't believe that we can kick out these polluters literally that are in our backyard. And my years of tackling these issues of poverty, of wrongful convictions, John Burge is getting released today. That was a fight that I fought way back when. And the exploitation of migrants and immigrant workers, my experience of defending our neighborhood from these polluters, of defending women and children's rights, is what sets me apart from my competition. And that's exactly what's prepared me to take on City Hall and anyone that stands in the way of justice for my beloved community.
Thank you.
I'm asking you to trust me, that I need you to believe that I'm the one that can bring the community back together. I want to bring the community up to date, improve infrastructure. When I was talking to residents around here, the complaints that I'm hearing are abandoned buildings, gangs, poor lighting, shootings in the park. You can't go to McDonald's, our youth are being shot at, the schools are old, the facilities need to be updated. These concerns are normal, everyday concerns for this neighborhood, these youth, the residents of Jeffrey Manor, and you need somebody that's going to come out and fight for you. I'm that person. I've been there, I've seen it, I can help you. I'll work my hardest to fight for you, bring businesses here, bring jobs back to the community, rejuvenate this neighborhood, get the blood flowing through it again, make young families want to move in, make them feel safe, make them feel secure. You need to hire more police officers, get more community involvement, and communicate with each other. Communication is the #1 key. I'm all about wanting to know what you want as a neighborhood, what you want as a community, and I'm willing, again, like I told you, to work with other aldermen and other wards to make sure that we're all on the same page and we're all doing things for our residents the way that we need to be doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
First thing is I will work to hire a racially diverse staff that reflects our ward, #1. I will work to bring a green economic corridor, industrial corridor to the 10th Ward to put our people back to work. I will also work to call for a moratorium on all public funding of the CPS budget, $75+ million that goes towards charter schools, to reallocate that money back into our local neighborhood schools for arts, music, and vocational training. I will work to hire more police and put them in our beats and keep them in their beats. I've been blessed with the opportunity to have stood up against not one but two mayors, not one but $2 billion companies. I have stood up against the politically corrupt Hispanic Democratic Organization. I'm the only candidate to hold this alderman accountable for the last 16 years. I will work to abolish red light cameras. I'm also the only candidate here that has signed on to the city ordinance seeking reparations for Chicago police torture survivors. This alderman has not signed on to that ordinance, and I will work with all 7 neighborhoods, all seven equally, to fight for you and for your families, to be your voice, to be the ambassador for you and your families in the Chicago City Council. I'm honored to receive the endorsement of the Chicago Sun-Times, which said that I have the clearest vision of how to move this ward forward. And I look forward to serving you, being a servant, to serve you and your families in the Chicago City Council. Thank you.
We want a ward run by the people, for the people. And it doesn't matter which neighborhood you live in. Whether you're Latino, white, retired, working, first generation, fourth generation, our destiny here is tied to one another. We've watched the results when politicians and wealthy corporations turn their back on us and tear us apart. That's not by accident. But here in the 10th Ward, we're forged of steel. 7th Ward as well. Let's show people what we can do when the 10th Ward comes together and unites. I will continue to fight for the LaSalle Street tax. That can generate between $10 and $12 billion a year that could fully fund our schools, solve the pension crisis, and reinstate the hundreds of wraparound services that have been cut. Here are some of my promises to you. I will vote no on any bill that threatens to cut a worker's pension. And I will not raise property taxes. I will not privatize any public services. And I will ensure that the jobs that come to the 10th Ward are green and union-led. I believe that if we do this together, we can have a ward that has a voice in City Hall, not one that is forgotten by the city and doesn't care what we get except Agrifine and Petco. We can't even buy a book in our neighborhood. That needs to change. I believe I'm the best person for this job because I have stood up and fought for working class families for over 30 years. And I will continue to do that and run this ward with you by forming advisory committees on education, safety, youth, seniors, jobs, recreation. We're going to run this ward together, not just one person, together. We need to unite and show downtown what we're about.
Thank you. Brian?
Thank you. How we reestablish our neighborhoods to the prominence they once were, a place where our families will stay to raise their children. Right now, because it's election time, we're on top of the issues. A lot of the people I speak to don't know what the TIFs are. I've been talking about TIFs for 8-10 years already. I question President Alderman about TIFs. No, they're not using that for the schools. The small problem, and I call it small, the citizens to abolish red light cameras. We have to address things like that. We're in a blighted neighborhood. They're still giving us tickets for something that we don't deserve. Parking meters in South Chicago where there's no businesses. I'm asking for your support to help me educate the community on TIFs, on fighting the culture of corruption that's in there, on a man who went into our pension plan, firemen, policemen, and teachers, and closed mental health clinics, most of them on the south side. The mental health clinics, ladies and gentlemen, you can't allow that. We're supposed to be our brother's keeper. We have to practice what we preach. So, thank you.
First of all, Michelle and the Manor Community Association, I want to thank you again for holding this event today. I'm proud of the work that our office has done in the Jeffrey Manor in the short time that we've had the opportunity to represent it, but we're not satisfied. But I'm proud of the endorsements we received. I think that's a reflection that we are making progress, although we should never be satisfied. And endorsements from folks like the Police and Fire Union, Congressman Kelly, Representative Evans, who's supportive of me and this community as a representative of Planned Parenthood and the gun prevention group, all who believe in me and have seen my track record. I'm glad to see that these improvements are occurring. I'm glad that this was well moderated, that there wasn't a whole lot of mudslinging, but still, there's a lot of misinformation presented here today, a lot of myths, and that's a shame. And I would hope that all the candidates here stay more active. It's a shame that during election time you see a lot of people come out, like the number of people are in this room, but before election and after, they're not involved. I'd like to see consistency in that, to have that. I'm proud of the accomplishments we've made, not just here in the Jeffrey Manor, but throughout the ward, but by no means am I satisfied. I believe I have the knowledge, the skills, the ability, and the drive to move the ward forward. I believe my record speaks for that. I believe the specific examples that I gave today were tangible and realistic, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak before the Jeffrey Manor Group and work here, and I hope that you endorse me and vote for me come election day. Thank you very much, Michelle.
Thank you very much. We are going to end our meeting as we normally do because of prayer. Please do not forget to tweet at capital T for neighbors. We are also on Facebook. We do hope that this is not the last time we'll see you. We see many faces, new faces. I hope it's not just because of the election. That you also support, as we've heard, a connection and unification of neighborhoods, that you will be here every second Saturday at 11 a.m. For the Manor Community Association meetings. Thank you for coming. So the Word of God tells us in all of our ways to acknowledge Him, and He will direct our path. If you could repeat after me, please. May the Lord watch. May the Lord watch between me and thee. Between me and thee. While we're absent. While we're absent. One from another.